It didn't work. Oh, yes, we are live.
It says you were.
Okay, everybody. So welcome to our Lunch and Learn. The Torah portion this afternoon that we're going to be looking is Baha'alotecha from the book of Numbers. And we've already begun. I apologize for those who are live streaming that I forgot to start our live stream on time. So here we are, the first text, God instructing Moshe to instruct Aaron to light the lamps, the 7 lamps. And Ziggy, will you continue reading Rashi's comment?
Rashi comments, why did this passage having to do with lighting the menorah follow the lighting of the gifts of the princes?
Okay, so let me pause for a second. So do you remember how the ending of Parshat Naso, last week's Torah portion,
concluded? The gifts of the princes.
It concluded with a very long repetition of each of the tribes presenting their gifts in the tabernacle to the community. And it was a long list of every tribe of every prince of every tribe that gave gifts. It's the longest Torah portion, and it concludes all of Parshat Naso. So Rashi wants to know what's the connection between the princes giving their gifts and the command by Aaron to light the lamps. He's implying that it would have been better to have given this command in the section earlier when we're dealing with the instructions of the tabernacle. Why would it make sense to do it now when it's out of context? It's already over when all of the instructions of the tabernacle have been given. So why only now is God instructing Moshe to instruct Aaron? That's the implying question behind Rashi's comment. Okay, Ziggy, go ahead.
Why does he call them princes? I mean, that's not
because in the Hebrew they're called Nasim, which is the leader. The Nasi is the leader of the tribe.
Right.
So.
All right, we'll live with it. It is because when Aaron saw that the tabernacle was dedicated by the princes, he became despondent, seeing that neither he nor his tribe had participated in that event.
Okay, stop again. So if you look carefully at Parshat Naso, you'll notice that all of the tribes of Israel are given the chance to present gifts in the tabernacle, except for the tribe of Levi. They are not. And so Aaron must have felt bad about that. And that's why Rashi says it's because this is in response to Aaron's sadness over the fact that he and his tribe were not given the chance to present gifts on their behalf to the temple. And that's why it is occurring right now in the Torah portion. Everybody understand what I'm saying there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Keep going, Ziggy.
As the Blessed Holy One said to him, by your life, your merit is greater than theirs, for you will light and prepare the lamps.
Yeah, the gifts, they're a one-time thing. You give a gift, you make it feel, you feel really good about it. You move around like a rooster, but then it's over. Whereas the priests and the Levites, particularly the Levites, every single day, they're presenting a gift in the tabernacle, and that gift that they present is the actual lighting of the menorah, the candelabra. Yeah, Paul.
I see something that all of them but the tribe of Levi dedicated gifts to the tabernacle, but the Levites themselves were dedicated. They were their own gifts in a way, and I don't know why Aaron couldn't see that their service to God was their gift to God, as the princes had given other gifts.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm not sure historically if Aaron did feel despondent. And I wonder if it was an opportunity for Rashi to touch on elements of human nature, that even though, right, there are moments when we have certain privileges and certain rights shared with other people, in the moment in where we're set apart or excluded or not given the chance to be like everybody else, even when we have our own unique way of being, we feel a certain amount of sadness or dislocation or separation. So I think here Rashi is speaking less about whether or not historically Aaron really felt despondent and more about what's the nature of human beings. Even when we have something special for ourselves, if we can't be like everybody else, we feel less than. We feel, in a certain sense, sad and depressed. And that's what he's touching on. And it makes sense, given the order of the stories in the Torah, to use the unusual order as an opportunity to make a point, which of course then the Hasidic text, which is written by or reported by Rabbi Meir of Rothenburg, he's going to use that as a lesson for each one of us.
But why was Levi excluded?
For the very reason that you said, because they are not like all of the other tribes of Israel, and they have responsibilities to the functionality of the Mishkan. They're the ones who are responsible for caring for the Kohanim and making sure that the sacrificial system is put into place so the Kohanim have an easy time administering it. So they don't have the...
You're saying nevertheless they felt bad because they weren't like the rest of their brethren.
Correct. They've already been elevated, and yet even in their elevation, they still feel they're being excluded in some way. Yeah, Sandy.
They sound very childish.
Well,
You know, they're the second to the biggest machers of the tabernacle. But I didn't get to give a ram and a sheep and a goat and I forget the whole list. My daughter may still remember. It was her after. This is it's so childish.
have you seen moments in life? Have you seen politicians acting childish when they have everything and yet they feel that they're being excluded? Have you seen children in a family or grandchildren when one child gets
we're talking high priest here.
Doesn't make a difference. It's
Anyway,
human nature. My in-laws, I love my in-laws. They could not give a gift to one of my kids when it was their birthday without giving something to the other grandchild for fear that the other grandchild would feel left out.
My in-laws, my mother-in-law also always, there had to be parity.
Even though I was like, it's okay for them to feel left out. It's not their day. They can feel like they don't have to be first in line all the time. But, it's just, that's the way human beings are. We want it all. And if we miss something, we feel like we're missing out. So, okay, Ziggy, go ahead.
We can understand this to mean that Aaron's despondence, his broken heart, was greater than theirs and will stand forever. Your constant demand of yourself to act without cease, you mean cause?
Without ending, without stopping.
Okay. It's a source of encouragement and support to be engaged in every good deed, a sign of powerfully self-renewing yearning and desire for the good, seeing always that there is something yet to be done.
Okay, now here, as we've looked in the past, what the Hasidic master is doing is changing the actual meaning of the text and the actual meaning of Rashi to make a point for what he wants to make. So don't assume that you can go from A to B to C in a logical way as if this is a geometric proof text that you are trying to explain why all three angles in an equilateral triangle all have to be the same degree. That's not the way. Boy, how did I pull that out of my head? I have no idea. But that's not the way that Hasidic texts work. It doesn't flow A, B, C. And what he's doing here is he's rearranging the meaning of the Rashi. What does Rashi say? Rashi says, don't worry, Aaron, I know you feel sad, but because you didn't get a chance to give a gift, we're going to give you the opportunity to light the the menorah every day. That's going to be your compensation. But that's not what the Hasidic rabbi is saying. Rabbi Rothenberg is saying is really where Aaron's sadness comes from. Where does his sadness come from? Read the paragraph again. We can understand this to mean that Aaron's despondence was greater than the prince's, and it will always be there, because your constant demand of yourself to act without ceasing is the source of encouragement and support to be engaged in every good deed, a sign of powerfully self-renewing yearning. Where is Aaron feeling despondent? What is his cause of sadness?
A missed opportunity to contribute.
It has
Yet
nothing to
again.
do. Well, it's a daily despondency that says, can I live up to the expectation that God has placed on me? Can
Is it
I?
God's, pardon me, is it God's expectation or Aaron's expectation of himself?
Oh, really? That's excellent question.
Thank you.
Excellent question. It's probably Aaron's expectation of himself. Here he has been given the task of lighting the lamp. Will he have the kavanah, the intention, the spirit, the ability, the energy to approach his task every day with the same kind of energy as the princes approached their task that one day, or as Aaron did it the very first time that he was asked to do it? Do you find yourself, right? Do we all find ourselves when having to do something over and over again, lose sight of the importance? I'm going to take, because Judy's on the call for the first time in a long time. So as a nurse, right? Imagine if Judy, who is so used to putting in a, I don't know, fill in the blank. Let's say a pick line, right? If she's so used to doing it every time she does it, that she doesn't think that the person that she's about to do it for is a brand new human being who's never had this done to him or her, or certainly not a long time. And Judy needs to come with the same compassion and the same gentleness and the same care to that 5,000th patient as she does to the very first patient that she had to do it. And yet Judy's been doing this for hundreds and hundreds of times. And so it may be easy for Judy to say, okay, you know what, I'm just going to get in and do it and get out, because I've got a long list of things that I have to get done today. And putting a pick line in is about the simplest, easiest thing for me to do. And she misses that opportunity to connect deeply with that other human being. Now, and I'm not saying that Judy would ever behave in that way, but that's really what's in essence
wait,
going on
can
at
I
Judy.
answer that? Can I answer that?
Yes.
Yes.
I think if we're talking about human beings, that it would be only natural to have a day where, who knows, something went on at home, or like you said, there's a whole list of things to get done. And no, I know that there have been days that I've been called on it by a patient on something that I've done over and over again, that I've been a little too maybe cold about how I'm approaching it, or my mind is elsewhere. So yes, it doesn't mean I would be doing it wrongly. I just wouldn't have that connection with the patient.
And imagine if you're given the choice between putting a pick line in and walking and being called upon to be the nurse in charge of a rare brain operation with a doctor who you find to be a particularly excellent doctor. And she calls you in because she wants you to be her nurse in that moment, versus the call that you're getting from the patient who you've been treating for a week now, who's complaining about her, whatever it is that, that she or he is complaining about. And you say, you know what, I'm going to let somebody else take care of that, because I want to be in the surgical room, scrubbing up and being witness to an amazing moment in medical history.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say I would be a nervous wreck, because I would want everything to be perfect.
But often we look for the thing that's different from our daily occurrences. We want the shot in the arm that the princes received in giving their gifts once, as opposed to the dreary, work that has to engage ourselves on a daily basis. And that's the potential for Aaron's despondency. Like, I want to get the charge that it came with the princes. I don't want to have to do this work, which now I feel is like, the drudgery of my existence. I want to do something new and fun and exciting. Do you follow the mind of the Hasidic rabbi? So Ziggy, why don't you continue the last paragraph?
Reb Hirsch Leib of Ulik left home as a young man to live in exile.
Notice that exile's in quotes.
With only a poor bundle on his back. He met a farmer who asked, "Where are you going, young man?" "I'm going to look for work," he replied. The farmer responded, "Is there no work in your village?" "It's hard to find it," said Reb Hirsch Leib. "You are mistaken," said the farmer. "A determined person who is not lazy will find work even in his home."
Now, isn't that amazing where we came from, where we started? I mean, we have moved so far from the pshat of the text, which was the question of why is it that the command for Aaron to light the menorah is in the Torah portion right after the priests giving gifts. And what's the ultimate answer, right? What is the ultimate lesson for each of us here, according to Reb Hirsch Leib of Ulik? Where does spirituality begin and end? Where does meaning start and end?
I think it's within ourselves. It's within ourselves, because as you commented, on our daily tasks that become boring and mundane, I think the spirituality starts within ourselves, that we realize that whatever it is we're doing, it has value. And
Exactly. Where does meaning come from? Where does spiritual uplift come from? It comes inside. We could wander all over the world looking for that thing that's going to bring us joy and happiness and meaning, when in reality, it was right in front of us the whole time. We just were not willing to engage. We saw life as mundane, as regular, as usual, as normal, and we wanted excitement, and we wanted newness, and we wanted thrill. We wanted to be like the princes, right, who gave a gift once. We don't want to be like Aaron, who has to light the lamp every single day. I think about, midlife crises. Think about people who, get divorced for the wrong reasons, looking for a little bit of excitement in their life. Think about the people who are changing jobs every couple years because they want something new and exciting to challenge them. And here we have a text that says, folks, that which is most meaningful is right in front of your face. You're just too blind to see it.
I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Anybody else want to jump in? Okay, Ziggy, the last paragraph.
Later in life, when Reb Hirsch Leib became a recognized Rebbe, he would tell this story to his Hasidim. And he would add, when a Jew truly, deeply desires to serve God, it is possible to find this work even at home.
It's interesting. COVID has presented a particular challenge to us by not being able to come to synagogue, which for many of us is a source of spiritual comfort and renewal, especially on a Shabbat or even to the daily minyan. Question is, how do we find it literally in our homes? Right? That's why one of the other reasons why I chose this text, because it speaks literally to the situation that we find ourselves. That can we create a sense of spiritual uplift in that which we take to be our normal, everyday place of dwelling? For those of you who watch on Shabbat morning, sometimes you'll notice that I start services with Ma Tovu as opposed to Birchot HaShachar. And the reason I start with Matovu, with a little bit of introduction, is to help people try to frame the experience of their davening so they feel something unique and something special, that they're creating a holy moment, even in their home, which is an ordinary place for them to be living. And so, the challenge of this text is both from a geographical, from a spiritual, from an emotional standpoint. How do we find meaning in the everyday, ordinary parts of our existence? Paul.
Another question here is, what does he mean by find this work? What is work to him? Is it Torah study? Is it, the work of your hands and to improve your home, your life? Or
I would say the answer to that question is yes, all of the above. He may be thinking literally avodah, as in worship, the connection between work, avodah, and worship. But Paul, I like your definition. I think work can be any of those things or all of those things.
And Georgina just said, including working on relationships in your home.
Without a doubt.
There's too much time for that right now.
That's a lot of work.
Absolutely. There's no shortage of things that we can hunker down on and be more attentive to and more intentional about than we normally have time to, do, because the reality is we have fewer places to necessarily go that would take us away from that kind of intentionality. Okay, Maxine Silverberg, since you're unmuted,
Yes.
will you read Rabbi Jonathan Slater's commentary on this text?
A key component of spiritual practice is recognizing and setting an intention, a point of clarity, a direction of movement, a fundamental awareness to which we can return to keep ourselves on track.
Okay, hold on. So his understanding, Paul, of the paragraph before, is that the kind of work that we are intending is spiritual work. Now, again, that's not the only way to have to read this text. The way that you were reading it, equally valid. But the way that Slater is reading it is in that sense that this is about our relationship to God and the spiritual, in our life. Go ahead, Maxine.
So long as we are clear in our intention, holding ourselves accountable to it, clarifying it as we deepen our experience, we have a chance of finding our way on the spiritual path. We will have a point of reference, a way of knowing who we are, where we are going, and if we are on the right path. As Reb Hirsch reminds us, being on the path does not necessarily mean leaving home. Spiritual work takes a place at every moment, in every location, in every circumstance. This challenge, as he was reminded, is to seek clarity in each moment. With this as our intention, then even at home, there is work to do.
Right, emptying the dishwasher, making dinner, driving to the grocery store, shopping in the grocery store. Whatever it is, there's spiritual work to be done if we use the act as an opportunity for greater mindfulness, for noticing, for paying attention to how our interactions impact other people, how our behaviors influence ourselves and others. It doesn't matter what it is that we're doing. The ordinariness of lighting the menorah every day still can be filled with spiritual meaning. Brushing our teeth every morning can be a spiritual act, even if we're not a dental hygienist or a dentist. Listening can be a spiritual act, even if we're not an audiologist. right? Every act that we engage in. So where do you sense your place in your spiritual practice? For you, what is your spiritual practice? Do you have a spiritual practice? And up until this point, what do you think has been your spiritual practice? What's been your regular go-to? Neil.
Well, when you're davening.
No, don't say you. I want you, the answer. When I kneel kaluva daven.
When I kneel kaluva daven, I concentrate on my spiritual being, and I think that's a time when most people will concentrate on their spiritual being. I certainly do.
Well, I don't know about most people. I can't speak for most people.
I can only speak for myself, as you said.
Exactly. But I trust that for you, right, when you daven, that is one of those moments where you use it as an opportunity to focus on your spiritual being.
Yeah, like putting a glass in the dishwasher. I don't give too much spiritual thought to that, but it's just a habit, a practice.
Okay, so try it next time.
Okay.
Try to go beyond your davening to see if you can make even putting a glass in a dishwasher a spiritual practice. Or if not a spiritual practice, an act with more intention than it may have been prior to this, lunch and learn.
Okay.
Anybody else want to, where do you sense you place your spiritual practice?
If I'm unmuted,
Mhm.
I think two things. When I am working in my garden in the front yard, or when I am sitting and looking at it, or when I am out walking and observing nature.
How is that fig tree of yours in the front garden?
Oh, there are lots of figs to be had. We have a second fig tree that the winds knocked over, that this green figs that are so sweet, and we're trying to save it now.
So the documentary, The Biggest Little Farm, or something it's called. Carol, what's the exact name of it? Why am I not surprised that you saw that documentary?
You're right. It's called The Biggest Little Farm. And go ahead.
No, so it reminds me of when we talk about spirituality, if you watch this movie, the spirituality with which they approach their work of creating a farm in an unusual manner. The film is an unbelievably wonderful expression of religious devotion and dedication, even though there's not a single word of God mentioned in the entire movie. It all depends on how you approach it.
It's one of the most impactful movies I've seen in terms of spiritual. They had something in their mind that I guess was a dream in the beginning, and they never gave up on it in spite of all the obstacles that they encountered. And at the end, at least when the movie ends, not only was the farm successful, but their inner selves were so gratified and so I guess thankful for what they accomplished.
The challenge of the movie is to never read your life as less than the way that they're choosing to live their life. That the goal of the movie is to be able to say that each one of us can approach whatever it is that we do in life with the same full spirit that they approached their particular choice. And that's really what this text and what Rabbi Hirsch is trying to teach us. So I'm not telling you, I'm not trying to promote Amazon and tell you to go spend, $3.99 to watch the movie, but it was a worthwhile and inspirational movie to watch. Neil.
I think oftentimes when you attempt a task or you complete a goal, there's a certain spirituality in the act of completing it, not necessarily the goal or the task itself. It's just the idea of accomplishing it. There's a spirituality in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Okay. Shall we look at another text? Okay.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
before you go, could you go back up to the other fellow's commentary? Here we go, right there. This sentence right here, where he explains, why it'll stand, is so. I hate to give another plug for Musar, but this is a very Musar-like sentence. It says, "The constant demand of yourself, which is zeal, to act without cease, which is, deliberation, going for it, is a sign of encouragement and support, which is another midah." So what he's really, the thing about ceaseless is it just doesn't stop. It's moment to moment that there's this chance to reflect, to find the good, to do the right thing. So again, I love the dishwasher a lot, and I wouldn't say it's the same thing as davening, but there's a grace and kind of a choreography to it, and the leaning and everything. And it can be fun. It can be,
Yes. Unless, of course, it breaks, which is why dishwasher's on my mind, because I had a dishwasher repairman come today to tell me I need a new circulation pump for $350.
Oh,
we don't want to get
Dishwasher.
into that.
new one.
Yeah, but $350 is still cheaper than $1,000 for a new dishwasher. So
That's a very high price,
You
right?
can almost hire
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah.
yeah, who knows?
Hire someone to wash your dishes.
All right, let's go on to the next text. Okay, so I don't know. How about Judy and Eve Goldberg? Will you read this one?
Rabbi Rothenberg?
Yeah, Rashi comments.
Okay. Rashi comments, there is a superscript dot over the last letter of.
Oh, whoops. I'm sorry. We have to go back to the text right here. Sefer Bamidbar Perek Tet Daber al Bnei Yisrael.
Okay. Lemor ish ki yetamei. I have a problem reading Hebrew in public. So.
It's okay. I'll read it. Ish ki yeh matel nefesh or b'derech rechoka lachem or l'dorotechem va'aseh pesach la. So ladonai. So what is going on here? This is when any one of you, of your posterity in the future, if you're defiled, if you're in a position of being tameh where you cannot offer the Paschal offering on Passover itself, you can do what's called the second Pesach Sheni. So there's a statement in the Torah that most people don't even pay attention to, that if you couldn't partake in the Passover offering on Passover itself, because you were tameh and you were far away from the community and you couldn't go to the mikveh and you couldn't get yourself ready for the holiday, that's okay. You can do it again later. How many of you are familiar with this passage? So there were actually rabbis during the beginning of COVID-19 who were asking the question, does this passage account for our ability to push off the Seders to a time when we can all come together and celebrate? When everybody was thinking that the COVID-19 would be a short, 2-week period of time of separation. So anyways, that's the verse. And in the Hebrew, the word rechoka, this word right there, which means far away, off on a long journey, has dots on it in the Hebrew text, in the Torah. And so Rashi comments on what is the purpose of putting those dots on that word. And those dots appear on a bunch of words throughout the Torah, and there's no clear explanation for why they're there. So now back to the commentary. Judy, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Rashi comments, there is a superscript dot over the last letter of rechoka, distant, to tell us that they were really far away, only they were just outside the threshold of the inner court. One little dot in the Torah teaches us that distance from the temple is not measured in thousands of miles. It is possible to be just outside the threshold of the inner court, right on the doorstep, and nevertheless to be outside of the temple. This point is made even more clearly in the Jerusalem Talmud, Pesachim.
I think I had
The letter He has a dot over it to tell us the person is distant, not the journey.
Okay, so in a nutshell, what is this teaching us? It's another wonderfully profound and yet simple text.
So you don't have to be traveling far to be distant. You can be, as a person, doing your daily things or your relationships, you can remove yourself and be distant in mind or in body.
Yeah, right? I think it happens to us all the time, doesn't it?
Yep.
We're present in front of a person, they're talking, we don't hear a single word they're saying. Does that ever happen to you? Does that ever happen to you?
Never.
Have you ever finished lunch or dinner and looked down at your plate and not even realized that you were eating lunch or dinner? Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever come into synagogue for Shabbat morning and walked out and not felt like there was any change whatsoever in your spiritual direction? Right? Have you ever taken a class and sat in that class and not heard a single thing that was said, and then walk out of that class knowing you just spent an hour and didn't even hear anything? I mean, that probably happens a lot with my classes, I'm guessing. Right? So you don't have to be far away to not be, right? To be far away. It's not about geography at all. It's about mindfulness again. So it's a similar text to the one before. Yeah, Paul?
It seems like the opposite, the other side is true as well. If a distance is one point to the next, he's saying that if 1 point is enough, that's distance enough for you to know yourself, to be yourself.
Excellent. Other thoughts?
This kind of thing you're talking about, I used to find, and maybe others do as well, very true on my drive, not to work so much as but home. I would get home and I'd say, I don't remember the drive home. That it was so, and it was kind of frightening because I thought, if I'm not really focused, did I run a red light? Did I, anything like that? So I actually used to vary because I could easily in my short distance of my commute, I would vary my route home, independent of traffic issues and whatever, just so that I had to pay attention a little more, because I didn't always go the exact same way. Because to me, it was truly frightening to think that I didn't remember driving those few miles and making stops at stop signs or lights or for another car. And was I just so zoned out, really, because it was so routine?
What's the cause? So you're already answering my next question. What's the cause of the distraction? What's the cause of our inability to be close, to be present?
Sometimes routine. Like you spoke about in reference to Judy and doing a medical task. If you do it all the time, are you really paying attention, or is it automatic? So automatic that if there's something that's off a little bit, you're not even seeing it, for the fact that you expect it to be exactly the same as it was the time before and the time afterward.
Last night, did you watch the show Doc Martin?
Not I.
Nope.
So Carolyn loved that show, and she was watching a rerun of it yesterday while I was in the kitchen doing something else, but I was like listening to it.
Probably
And there was-
dishes.
Yeah. I think I was finishing. It's true. I think I was finishing and cleaning and whatever else.
You don't have a dishwasher.
And like he was fighting this other doctor who was assuming that there was a procedure that needed to be done, a surgery that needed to be done, because she's done 500 of them, and he saw it in a different light. And because he saw it in a different light, and she refused to be able to see it in his mind, because she was so used to the problem appearing in the way in which it appeared, that she made a leap, an assumption. And sometimes we make assumptions that, you know, everything's going to be the way it always has been until it isn't. And then when it isn't, that's the moment when it's crisis. But if we would pay attention more closely to, even when it's supposed to be the way it is, that there's always something slightly different. There's no such a thing as the way it always is, because nothing is the way it always is. Every moment of life is a brand new moment, because we're a brand new person in every moment. So there's no such a thing as routine. Even though we live our lives, of course, we have no choice, right, to live our life with a certain sense of habit and routinization in our lives. Paul, I saw your hand up, and then Lauren. No? Okay, Lauren, did you have, no? George, did you want to say something?
Okay. Without a vav, I mean, that's a shortened version, isn't it?
I mean, it could be written with a vav.
Yeah, but that kind of elongates it, doesn't it? Emphasizes it more.
In terms of the way in which it's read, it doesn't make any
but-
bit of difference whether the vav is there or not.
Oh, but the meaning might be a less thing. If
That's nice. That's a nice drash.
not original.
I like it. That's nice. All right, let's yeah, Paul.
I just wanted to comment to Sandy's point, and you asked what is the distraction when you're driving home and don't know how you got there, and I call it living in my head. That's what's going on inside my head, and all those thoughts are more present than the world, you know, outside my car.
Yeah, that's I think the biggest distraction is the stuff that's going on inside of our heads. We could also say that a big distraction today, you know, is our, you know, cell phones. But it's the thoughts in our head which becomes the biggest distraction, which is why it's so important to, you know, try a practice of meditating or yoga or any of those things which encourage us to slow our thoughts down and be more focused on our thoughts. You know, or for Jill's sake, Pilates, whatever it may be.
It's all those things going on in my head that make the concept of meditation not my thing, because
What-
I will start to think of what do I need at the grocery store, or what are the errands I need to do, or I forgot to call so-and-so, or any number of things in that category.
I think you're unique. I think you're probably the only person that has faced meditation with that challenge.
Clearly.
I think if you read any books on meditation, Sandy, you will see that every book on meditation says the same thing. You don't get rid of the thoughts.
Yeah.
You just don't have to necessarily stay in the story of the thoughts. They come and they go, like, you know, clouds in the sky, or, you know, water in a river. They're always there, but you just watch them as they go by instead of holding on to them.
Well, I have yet to do that, but maybe someday.
You know,
Lauren?
Somebody said, don't give a thought a second thought.
Yes, that's a good lesson for meditation. All right, who was reading before?
Judy.
I was the last one to read.
Okay. So Al, will you read Rabbi Jonathan Slater's commentary? And after this, we're going to have to stop because I have to get ready for the wedding.
So Rabbi Nachman offers an image of a person sitting on the side when others are dancing. His distance, possibly feeling badly about himself, possibly resentful that others are joyful and not paying attention to him, grows deeper until someone grabs him by the hand and brings him into the circle. Rabbi Nachman uses this image to describe how we might work with our minds and hearts, bringing our melancholy and negative feelings into the circle of our own joy. How might we apply this teaching to the situations described in the lessons above?
So here the alienation, the distance, the richokah, right, is self-imposed. We have put ourselves on the outside. What do you do in those moments? How do you, right? How do you re-engage yourself?
It looks like sometimes it takes another person to help you out of wherever you are. Maybe you need some assistance from someone else. Maybe you need to call out, or someone has to recognize your need and help you, because a lot of people can't do it on their own.
Wow, isn't that a great message for all of us, right? Can we be the person who draws the other person into the circle? Especially when we're ourselves in the circle. How often do we notice who's not in the circle with us? Right? How often when we're at shul do we ever look around and say, who's sitting by themselves? Who's not engaged? Can I engage them so they don't stay in their own despondency? And I remember many, months ago, Jill, you telling the story of walking into a synagogue where you felt like everybody was dancing and you weren't dancing and nobody was pulling you in. Right? So sometimes, as Al said, it takes somebody in the circle to notice those other people, but that's not always going to happen. And while that's good and that's important for us to remember when we're in the circle to pull people in, what about when we're on the outside of the circle and nobody does pull us in? Then what do? How do we get out of that state of despondency and despair and feelings of woe is me and victimhood and join the dancing? What does it take to do that? What do we have to be willing to live with?
Rejection.
What's that?
Rejection.
Courage, vulnerability, trust in ourselves, a willingness to take risks. Absolutely.
Sometimes I think it's also just something to get out of yourself. And so, for me, one of the things is like I start the day with the Moderni or with another, a meditation or another prayer or something to get out of myself and think about the other, to think about, a different, to bring me out of it,
It's not easy. There's no question about it. If it was easy, then we wouldn't have these texts to challenge us. So the work is in front of us. And I think both these texts provide lots and lots of work for us to think about. If you're interested in a copy of the text, will you please send me an email and I will send them to you. Unfortunately, we have to stop because I've got to go prepare in a few minutes for this renewal of vows. But I will see you all hopefully Friday night at services, Shabbat morning at services, Sunday night for our mentalist magician who is going to blow your minds, and for other wonderful activities coming up in the near future.
Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
As well. And I'll see all of you if you come by the synagogue at 4 o'clock to pick up a Shabbat basket.